I started the company 2 years ago. I began as a bootstrap software as a service company. So we have a couple of products out there that we built with SST. But anyway, early days of the company, I had some software experience before that, coding since 14. Thomas and I both majored in physics. That's actually where we met. I did, so we both, after we graduated in 2019, we went our separate ways. I went to work for a machine learning consulting company here in Austin, leading multiple projects for creating and implementing machine learning models. And Thomas went to work for the UT Research Laboratory here in Austin, doing naval research using machine learning. So that's kind of where we went after that. I started the company 2 years ago, knowing nothing about setting up a SaaS product, just back end, front end, like full stack, hooked up to Stripe and all that. So I kind of had to start learning how to do that when I started the company. And so I found Frank and Jay's serverless stack tutorial back when they were using the serverless framework. And that's kind of what taught me everything I know, I guess, about, spinning up a software product really fast, having all your infrastructure as code. And so since then, we've been iterating, building products, doing machine learning consulting as well, and have followed Frank and Jay ever since I found that tutorial. So now everything we do is SST based, because it's infrastructure as code. You spin stuff up really, really quickly because you can just copy your code from one project to the other, and it's all within the walled garden of AWS. So anyway, that's the kind of serverless or SST product side of what we do, the SaaS side. And then there's also the machine learning side. And the machine learning side, because models can be very, very kind of exotic. So sometimes you wind up with really weird dependencies that make it really hard to deploy them. And so finding a way to actually train a model, create a data set, do all that and stuff it into a SaaS product and have it hooked up nicely to this infrastructure as code we have is more of a non-trivial problem. Because just in my experience, it's been very tough. So, I mean, what we're presenting today is how we've started doing that, kind of marrying that ML pipeline to SST. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're presenting. And of course, Omi and David Austin, if y'all have any other ideas for how to make that better, we definitely love to hear them, because we love SST and love the ease of use with setting up SaaS products and having all that work just so elegantly and all together. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thomas is going to walk through the model, and then I'm going to walk through putting it into the infrastructure and hooking up to SST. And we're showing something real simple today. It's nothing crazy. It's just using the MNIST model, which is OCR, so optical character recognition, just training on a data set and basically taking an image and predicting, if it's a certain character or not. So that's all we're showing, very basic model, but it shows the end-to-end pipeline for going from data set to pre-processing to training to stuffing into a SaaS product. So Thomas, do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah, right. I can share my screen. Okay, cool. Yeah, so like Dylan was saying, what I'm going to walk everybody through here in a second is basically training the model to predict whether a handwritten digit is a 0 or not. And so what we're going to do with that is, can you see my screen? What we're going to do with that is basically put that into a front end user interface where you can upload an image, and then it'll tell you, yes, it's a 0, no, it's not a 0. So this is just a Jupyter notebook, very standard for machine learning, running experiments, etc. So what we're doing here is defining what S3 bucket we want to load our model and our data into. Basically, this is just a kind of a file pathing prefix, and our role here just gives us access to SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker, which is one way that we found to deploy machine learning models is SageMaker. So right here, we're just creating a file object to bring down this MNIST data set. Amazon Web Service already has this this data set in one of their S3 buckets somewhere because it's very popular data set for machine learning. We're going to go ahead and write that to a local file on our machine and then open it, and you've got it split already into training, testing, and validation data sets. Right here, we're just going to take a look at one of the images. So it's just this 30th part of the training set. It's a 3, as you can see, it's 28 by 28 pixels. Down here, you can actually see the information in the image. It's just 0 to 1 normalized, basically grayscale values. And it's a vector of length. Let's see, here it is, 784. So it's 28 times 28. Here we're splitting this into our feature set and our targets, or vectors and labels, as it's written here. And we create a file buffer so we can upload this to our own S3 bucket. So that's what we're doing here, is uploading our training data to S3. And we're also setting an output location for our final file. So it's going to be in this bucket that we defined earlier through this file path and in this output directory. Here we retrieve this linear learner model from SageMaker, and we define some parameters and set hyperparameters for this. And then it's literally as easy as calling model.fit, basically. And this takes about 10 minutes to train for this example. You can see if I scroll up through all this, it goes through all these different iterations, different models, different fine tuning, and it basically just picks the best one out for you. And then finally, it will complete, and then this model or linear object will be the fit model. So the next thing that is also kind of time consuming is the actual deployment. So we're going to deploy this to a AWS SageMaker endpoint. This takes, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes or so to actually deploy. And then I could have done this later, but you can see from here, you can get some predictions from our test set, and you can run a confusion matrix over that. So you can see it's actually a pretty decent model for basically not having fine-tuned anything. Now, obviously, this is a pretty generic data set and people have studied it, so this is kind of expected. So anyway, I'll go ahead and turn this back over to Dylan here in a second. And he's going to, or we're going to see that he's going to be able to take that SageMaker endpoint and actually put it into a SaaS product. So
before we hop over there, just to comment on why we like using a local Jupyter notebook. It's kind of for the same reason with SST. You have your local live Lambda testing. That's just really nice to not have to deploy things or go spin up a cloud environment. Because I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard there's AWS SageMaker notebooks, but then you got to go spin them up, and then you have to wait on them to start, which is like 5 minutes, and then you have to remember to turn them off. And it winds up just, especially for data science work, you want to be as close to your data as you possibly can. So having something local is definitely preferable. And especially just for latency and stuff like that. If you got it all local, like on your computer, and work with your data, push it to S3 when you're ready to train, and then, initiate the job from your notebook, that's kind of the preference there. So let me share my screen.
And the other thing about using SageMaker is SageMaker or just Amazon computing resources is you can pull all the strings just from a laptop. You don't have to have any huge monstrosities of GPUs and all that for your.
Right. And I've definitely had those. When I first got into it, I built a deep learning rig and it was running Ubuntu and everything. And that's it's not like my Mac. So anyway, here's the UI. It's just a simple next app. So you upload image file and then get prediction basically. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So overall, this is just kind of a, your general, SST template. We've got, a stack for each part of this. And for those of you who aren't familiar with SST, essentially what's happening is each one of these has code in it that spins up resources in Amazon Web Services. And those resources are S3 bucket, API endpoints, all the back end and front end things we need to deploy our SaaS product. So anyway, I'll just jump right to the endpoint. So this API stack.js, we've got this is zero endpoint because we're basically just checking to see if an uploaded image is zero or not. And if I go over here to source and is zero.py, here's our handler for that function that Thomas just deployed a while ago with SageMaker. You'll see right here, we're taking in the file that we want to run a prediction on. We pre-process that file down here. So you see we've just got a couple steps. Most notable here is that normalization. So you saw that everything, in that matrix was between 0 and 1. This is basically all this is doing. So gets pre-processed, and then all we're doing to call that model endpoint is just using Bodo3's reference to SageMaker, this Bodo3 client runtime SageMaker, to call that endpoint, and we get our prediction back as a response. So overall, like we've found that this is very clean, just to be able to kind of have that Jupyter notebook with all the data science stuff in it, run locally, train in the cloud, and then you deploy it. And then the way you hook up to an SST endpoint is you're just putting that Bodo3 or AWS SDK if you're using Node. You're basically just making it so you can run that endpoint inside the Lambda. So that's pretty much it for that right now. So I'll just give you a quick demo. So let's see, upload this. So anyway, so we're checking to see if it's a 0. Our score comes back is 3.24 times 10 to the -7. So clearly not a 0. So, and if I go over here, you'll see that right here, print result, this endpoint got run, and those are our predictions. So overall, that's kind of what we've been using recently for hooking up models to SST, just kind of leaving it to SageMaker or some other AWS service to actually deploy the model itself. And then we're just calling that inside our SST endpoints. And again, if y'all have better ideas for how to do that, we definitely love to hear them. And I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but a big part of doing this webinar is kind of starting to give back to the SST community that's given us so much, because like I said, I've been following Frank and Jay ever since I started this company, and I've learned basically everything I know about setting up a SaaS product from them. So anyway, that kind of concludes the presentation on that. Thomas, do you have anything else to add?
Just on top of Frank and Jay, we also use their other product, seed.run, to go ahead and actually deploy our SaaS products to a live environment. So what they let you do with seed.run, if you're not familiar, is basically you connect it to your GitHub or Bitbucket, basically your source management. And anytime you push to a named branch, just master or